We have talked about this on previous videos. The return of physical media. We have vinyl, audio cassettes. The DVD, Blu-ray industry is starting to get a resurgence. Some people say, no, it ain't happening. No, 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 no. You got Sony, they're not making discs anymore. No, no. Sony is not making physical discs for those of you to record stuff on. But as far as the industry goes for recording, they're still well in play. Most of the technology comes from them because you a lot of the duplication processes and all that. A lot of it is by Sony. Most people don't realize that. But the thing about it is, and this is the reason why a lot of this is coming back, is basically censorship. Yeah, that's right, censorship, and how basically content warnings and all that. It's like warning, warning. You have certain things that says, well, it was problematic back then. Be warned that we have this. And then segments of the movie that just basically being snipped away. And people have been catching this. It's been for quite some time now. The other half is that, if people have downloaded stuff like from basically iTunes or Amazon Prime or any Apple TV, and from a technical aspect, you don't really own them. Because basically it goes by the licensing. So whatever is on your system, basically that's there for quite some time, and if the licensing is up, it'll disappear from your folder. Yeah, that's right. Or basically, if you have it loaded in your computer and you go to play it, it might have something on there and send a signal to basically allow you to do it, and then suddenly it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, I said this. This does happen. Because, Hollywood doesn't care. They don't really care this crap. This is why some of the great movies out there, going all the way back to the 30s, we're losing them to basically this narrative that basically we have to have made for the modern era, and change things around. They said, oh, things were back then were really bad. We can't have that anymore. We can't have that type of content because of basically, we're trying to make things better. How so? How so? They're stories. They're things that were written that basically people to enjoy, to sit back. There was a time and place where going to the movie theater was like going to a Broadway show. Most people don't realize that. You would go to the movie theater, you pay to get in. You got a newsreel. You got a cartoon. You got basically previews of future movies that are coming out. And then you got the film itself. It's the way it was, and things changed. Now they want to put out basically a rule that to tell you exactly when the movie truly starts in the theater, skipping over the commercials, the previews and all that. And they say, well, if it's supposed to start at 10 p.m., the actual movie starts about 10:15 before the first credit goes up. But today we're talking about a lot of the stuff that's out. Disney's making some changes to their content, which is, the content warnings, they're changing it because of the new administration, new rules on DEI, but still they're making the same mistakes. You have certain series that appears on certain streaming sites that are being removed that were major hits, and now you're not able to see them anymore. I mean, we don't have new seasons for them or anything like that. They just basically stop. And you got and just recently, an 80s classic movie that basically was a really fun and had a couple sequels, and now they snipped off something that basically they say it's offensive. It is really offensive against a certain particular group of people on there.
G'day. Big Dundee from Australia. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Just going
In town for a couple of days. Probably see you around.
Bye.
Is this your first trip to New York?
First trip anywhere.
Well, we might just have to give you one for free.
Yeah. On what?
But I've always said this. Have you seen the movie? Do you understand why it's in there and the understanding of the story itself? No, they just continue to do this. It's the same thing in anime. It is the exact same thing in anime. When we get, Taco Thursday, we're going to be talking about that. That, you have people that literally are chastising certain elements of one particular anime, but they've never read it. They said, "Oh, it has sex in it. There's sex being involved in it. Why?"
Why?
Have you not read this series before? It has happened before. It's like they've never read a page. It's the same thing with that mother in the Carolinas who got assassination classroom removed from the libraries, from the high school libraries. They said, "Well, our high school students don't have the brain capacity to handle this story." Really? It's a good story about a creature that wants to teach kids things. The other half of it is that basically he promises to destroy the world. So basically, the world leader says, "Well, we got to kill him, even though he's trying to teach you kids. But we'll have the kids do it and use weapons that only will hurt him." This happens. This happens constantly. But before we start, don't forget to share this video, like, comment, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. So we've been seeing little things here and there come out. Recently, we've heard that there's supposed to be a new, a box set or something to that nature. That Crocodile Dundee is being re-released. I guess it's being re-released for video and for basically theatrical, I guess, in Australia. And basically, they trimmed out certain things from that particular film. Now, most of the media has skipped over this. Deadline, Hollywood, Variety, The Wrap. And I mean, by now, I think they might have picked it up on there, but most of it didn't even bother to talk about it. And what has happened is that they've taken out a couple of things in there. Now, if you've never seen Crocodile Dundee, it's a fantastic film. If you can get an original cut of it, which is still out there, but I would say get it now because, if they run out, who knows if that'll be ending to be the new encore cut, supposedly what they're calling it or whatever it is. And what you've gotten is, you got to remember, this is a story about a guy who he lives in the Australian outback. And this reporter goes down to interview him about his life and stuff like that. And she decides to bring him back to America, to New York. And this is a guy who's fish out of water. Some of the things that's happened, that we see that it's normal to us is new to him. And that's what makes the comedy fantastic. I mean, the scene where the guy tries to rob him. In fact, I think they said some issues they wanted to cut that as well. He goes, "He's got a knife."
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And your wallet.
He's got a knife.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
And Paul Hogan goes, "That's not a knife." And he pulls out that big freaking hunting knife, something you would see out of a Rambo film. He goes, "That's a knife." But some of the other stuff that's in there is some of the stuff where he doesn't understand, certain quirks of people and stuff like that. And the one major thing that we're pulling out of it, is the transvestite scene. And it's a two-parter of this. And it's a very funny scene. It's where basically this transvestite walks up to him and tries to pick him up and stuff like that. And one of the people that he's befriended tells him, he says, "Hey, look at, He says, Croc, Mick, this is a guy. He said, really? That's a guy? So Mick goes up to him. That's the name he has in the movie, and grabs him in the below regions. And it's a funny part because he runs over. He's like, "Oh my god!" But see, this is someone that never seen a transvestite in his entire life, doesn't know of it, doesn't know that there are men out there that dresses like women, and he's put in front of it. And again, it's rehashed later on where he meets this older woman that she's a little manly, and he decides to do the same thing to her. And the joke at the end is that that's how they greet people in Australia. And the woman goes, "Oh, I got to go to Australia then." I mean, it's funny. And that's what this is, It's like there are scenes like in the sequel where he's doing a walkabout in New York, but on the skyscrapers along the pathways on the top of the skyscrapers, which interests him. Or he goes fishing in the middle of the East River using dynamite. This is a guy who is a fish out of water. And you have to remember, this movie got a Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. I mean, this was a fantastic movie. I saw it in the theaters. I got it. I have it on VHS and I have it on DVD. It is a fun time. The sequel, yeah, just as fine. After that, not so great. Kind of on that. And for myself, who's familiar with Paul Hogan's comedy, if you've not seen the Paul Hogan show out of Australia, you can find some of it on YouTube and out there on the internet. I mean, he does some great bits. I mean, he's really, really funny. And it's and this is at the same time, you're dealing with out of this into the 80s, you're coming out of the 70s, the Monty Python's Flying Circus and all the movies that they've done from England, all those hit TV shows on PBS and stuff like that. And then of course you have Benny Hill, and Paul Hogan and a couple other comedians fall into that category. Most people didn't see, like The Goodies. If you're not familiar with The Goodies, that is a great series. If you're, I think they might have started putting that back on video. And that's a great series, a British series itself. I mean, it's fantastic. A lot of stuff from overseas, the comedy is really good. Some people don't take to that comedy. It's the same thing with Monty Python. There's a lot of unusual stuff out of Monty Python, which I find very comedic. Also, John Cleese in Fawlty Towers. Also, that whole German thing where they see he hits his head and he's trying not to insult the German people that have come to stay at his hotel, and he starts to do these German bits that it blows your mind that, today's day and age, people will say, "Oh my God, why is he doing that? Oh no, we got to ban that." And there's some stuff that has been. There has been stuff that's been clipped off Fawlty Towers. This Ofcom situation in the UK is ridiculous at the moment. But this is not the only thing. This is not the only thing that we, to the point. Now, I've checked this, and it's still available on Amazon, but it could change anytime soon. If you're familiar with the great series The Expanse, fantastic series. The last season, they kind of rushed that because it literally, this is what happens to some great TV shows. They end up losing, either the writers or producers, or basically they're forced to finish the series in a rush without the budget they're supposed to have. But it seems that Amazon is going to be pulling seasons 1 through 3 from Prime itself. What does that mean? It means that basically The Expanse will not be available around for some time unless somebody else decides to buy the licensing to seasons 1 through 3. I mean, this is the point where, I have some of the books. I love the books. They're fantastic. I have season 1 on DVD, on Blu-ray. I don't have the rest on there. Eventually, I probably will get it as they become available to me. But it is a fantastic series, and we're going to lose out on it. And this is the stuff that I keep saying. You look at Crocodile Dundee, you look at The Expanse, you look at many other things. This is why there's been an increase in physical media. Even in piracy, and this is why piracy is still around also, is because you have situations like what I've just discussed. You have one movie series that's being cut, another one that's being removed from there, and then you have, of course, content warnings, which I hate content warnings. Content warnings need to go away. Content warnings, ratings, explanations, it just literally, we put to the point where we have to put every problem, every situation on the front screen. Now, we said before, Disney is changing their content warnings according to DEI changes within the current administration. In the Trump administration, there are things that are going out, some new regulations and stuff like that. But it's not going to change it. It's not going to bring Song of the South back out into the open. I believe, one thing I do believe, and you may be, different about this, but if you haven't seen the movie, take a moment, because you could probably see it out there. It's probably, you could see it on the high seas. Song of the South, it's a slow-paced movie, but it's not really racist. I've seen some stuff that you can name really racist, but does it need to go away? No, not really. It's a film. It's a story. This is a great story, a great Disney story about a former black slave who teaches children in the way through storytelling. And if this was out, there would be massive warnings on it. There'd probably be someone there for 5 minutes explaining, the time period. I don't need that. I don't need that on Gone with the Wind. I don't need an explanation on the reasonings behind Apocalypse Now. Or, these are films. These are stories. We don't need a warning on them as well. That's why I like to buy the older versions of them. Some of them don't have it. Some of them do. I've seen content warnings on Doctor Who, Red Dwarf. Let me think for a second. Some of the cartoons have them. Some of the old classic cartoons. They say, "Oh, it's from a different era." Yeah, of course it's a different era. It's a classic, and I know it's from a different era. Do I need to know it's from a different era, from a different time period, to the issues on there? I want to sit there to enjoy something. I don't need it to be edited. I don't need it to be removed to make it harder to get on streaming or on physical media. I just want to watch it. Is there stereotypes in it? Who cares? Stereotypes can be funny. They say, well, it's negative depictions. How is it a negative depiction? It's making levity of a situation. They're not being racist. If you ever watched I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, which is hysterical. Keenen Ivory Wayans, it is a really great film. If you've not seen it, it's a real good comedy. It makes fun of the 1970s black exploitation movies, and it stars some of the actors that have been in those films. But you got movies like Peter Pan, Dumbo, many others that basically they say, they try to say, well, they're talking about the crows in Dumbo that is very racist. It's just crows. Yes, they're voice acted by black, voice actors, but that's just an added to it. If you want to throw something at it, go watch Heckle and Jekyll. To the situation. It was not the same thing. You could have anyone to voice act on there. The other one was it Lady and the Tramp, the Siamese cats. People say, "Oh, there's racist against Asian people." I said, "No, it's not, because it's Siamese cats. You kind of had to, and it's a cartoon. Kids ain't gonna understand that. Kids think it's funny that look at these cats. They're acting weird." Same thing like, in Tom and Jerry or Magilla Gorilla or, all these other shows, movies and cartoons, The Lion King and all that. You could go to that situation and, the current film structure also and TV structure. They said, all these great, recently I've been watching, what is it? The Police Story. Police Story is a series that was out in the 1970s, not the Jackie Chan one before you jump into there. It was a series that it span off 2 series, including Angie Dickinson's Policewoman. And it also influenced stuff like Law and Order and every other crime show from the 1980s on. Every week it was a different story with different characters, different police stories from different angles, from undercover to cops on the beat to the upper echelon leadership in the police department. It varies from everything, and it's really well done. Some of it you can see right here on YouTube. If you get a chance, grab it. Also, you can see it on Roku. On there, if you don't want as many commercials as they do as on YouTube, but it's available on Roku also. You can catch it on there, and that's a great show, and it's also available on DVD out there on certain seasons as well. But here what we have is basically the industry that says, we don't want this stuff. We don't, we think we know better for our viewers, for people who pay for our tickets. Look at what has been going on in the last decade or so. Theaters are not getting the movies like they used to. They're not making the money that they used to. Movies have been crapping out left and right. Occasionally you have something in between that might do very well for itself or gets lucky to do very well for itself. But the thing about it is, still, it's not to the way it was from the 1970s to the 1990s when we had that gigantic renaissance after the end of the Hays Code. And I said this, we're in Hays Code 2.0. And I've said the MPAA needs to go. When you start to act the same way, but you've changed things around a bit, like the way the Hays Code went, where you're telling the producers, you're telling the studios, you're telling the actor, you got to hire this particular group of people to run your company, to run the movies. You got to have this amount of content from this particular minority group or stuff like that. For many years, we've had movies from all walks of life. Some of it not produced here, some of it from outside. You got to remember, Antonio Banderas came from overseas. It wasn't in America at first. And he did some great movies overseas. And same thing with a lot of other actors. Jackie Chan, another one. And many others. And they came to do movies here. They said, well, we don't have enough, of minority black movies on there. Well, what happened to the 1970s and 80s then? There were plenty of them then. Some great films. Some black exploitation, obviously, on there. Some crazy stuff on there. But there was a lot of crazy stuff in the 70s and 80s. But you also had some great stuff. You had Sidney Poitier out there, who was doing some great films. And many others that did some great films and not respected today and forgotten. Many people are forgotten in this business. I saw an article one time that the woman behind the masks of some of the greatest monsters of all time of Universal is forgotten out of history. Her name is not on the credits anywhere, and it needs to be. It needs to be. So what I need you to do is to comment. Let me know your thoughts about this. This is the need where we have to stay with physical media because of the stupidity that continues to happen in this industry. The removal of some stuff from streaming. Now, I can understand with streaming, you want to move it to somewhere else and get it off of Tubi or somewhere else. But when you take something that belongs to you and you rip it out and you're like saying, no, you're not going to get the whole thing. That's crazy. Or editing of a movie because you just don't like some of either the comedy or the content that comes before it. So comment, like, share this video, and hopefully today's the day I've earned your subscription. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for clicking on this video that we know you've clicked thousands of videos that you could have clicked on, but we really do appreciate it here on YouTube and Rumble. So have a good one. Enjoy yourself. Take in a good movie. Take in a good classic film out there. Something without these content warnings, without these editing. Enjoy them. Thrive with them. Keep them in your library. And have a good week. Bye-bye now.